In case you missed it, I just finished a 12-week course all about kettlebells with bell mechanics. If you know anything about kettlebells, the two big certifications for trainers are Strong First and RKC. And while I did contemplate going one of those two routes, I ended up going with bell mechanics, obviously. Let's talk about the reasons. Number one, I had been following the creator of the program, Sam Cha-Cha, online for a while and also knew of her from like the New York City fitness community. And I really love her story, her experience, and her overall approach to coaching and kettlebells. And number two, I was sold by the fact that we got 2 live sessions with her a week. 1 hour for a lecture and then 1 hour for office hours, or basically just like practice time and open time for questions. Each week was dedicated to a different skill, and I just found the overall layout and approach really appealing. And not to make this whole video about the certification, but if there are any coaches out there who want to understand kettlebells a little bit more, or even fitness enthusiasts who simply want to learn better technique, I cannot recommend this cert enough. So the link to join is below. And if you end up signing up for the course, let me know. I will give Sam a heads up that one of my people are popping on in. Okay, we're gonna get nice and comfy. I was originally gonna coach you through a few different strength drills, a few different skill drills that I would do with kettlebells. And I filmed the whole thing, and then I started editing the video, and I was like, this is so boring. So instead, we are gonna look at a few of the skills that I got to progress over this 12-week course and show you what I was doing wrong before and how I improved upon it. I feel like that's more entertaining. I feel like it's a better use of our time, especially because I coach these things live in classes all the time. So I just think that we're gonna get more out of this. And then at the end of the video, I'm gonna go through a few of the most frequently asked questions that I did get when I posted on YouTube and Instagram. Okay, so we're gonna look at 5 different skills, but I will say that we learned a lot of other things besides just these and a lot of different variations on these 5 basic skills. But these were kind of like the pre-course assessment of where our starting point was. And then at the end of the course, we had to resubmit these 5 skills and we got to look at our progress, which I actually thought was really, really helpful. First skill we're gonna look at is a deadlift. Great, so not terrible by any means, but definitely a few technique things that I could adjust. First and foremost, and this was actually something that I had to correct in a lot of my hinging, was that I have, if you see at the bottom, a positive shin angle, meaning that my knee is coming past my ankle. For some people, just with the length of their femur, their anatomy, this is going to be their hinge position. For me, I actually did have room to pull my hips back more, which you're gonna see when I resubmitted later. Otherwise, I'm creating really good tension through my core, maintaining that the whole time. I would say the only other thing is that I could aim the bell back just a hair farther. You can see it kind of creeps forward throughout the drill, but I think a lot of that also has to do with the fact that I'm just not driving my hips back as far as I possibly can. So let's look at the improvement. So you can see I hinge and then pull my hips back. So is it 100% like a straight line, that shin angle? No. But on my body, I am A, able to load my posterior chain a lot more, and B, take a lot of the work out of my low back. Definitely a little bit of like pinky toe movement. I don't know why, but just my pinky toe on that foot like doesn't go down. But ideally, we just want to maintain that full ground tension the entire time. You can see the weight is coming back further. So I always like to aim the bars between my ankle bones. Yeah, I would say overall, like just a much stronger, sturdier, more tense deadlift. All right, this is the wild one, my swings. I mean, powerful hip drive, really good starting position in terms of tension. Again though, really positive shin angle. So I can definitely pull those knees back more. Good tension through the lats. See how much I lift on my hike though. So I'm nice and low, and then I'm gonna lose half of the power from my hips. And then as I go through, I don't mind a little arm bend, but a lot of that is coming from the fact that I am not driving my hips back as far as I can. So you can see it's like a tiny little hinge, push, tiny little hinge, push. All right, so here's the improvement. So we can see more negative shin angle or neutral shin angle. Look at that hinge. Look at that power. Still maintaining good ground tension. This is a lighter bell than I was using in that first one, but still just so much cleaner, so much stronger. I would say that was like my #1 most improved skill. Let's look at cleans. Our testing skill was dead cleans. We did learn some things from swings. Not terrible. I would say like my cleans were already pretty strong. I have a slight like Elvis knee. So because the weight is on one side, you can see I'm actually driving my, what is that, left side? Left side back first, left, right. Whereas ideally, we want those legs left, right. You can even see it in my hips too. Left, right. Yeah, ideally we want that to happen at the same time. A good way to adjust that is by doing double cleans if you can. And then the only other thing from the side, I want to have a little bit of a squattier hinge in a clean. So if we just think about the path, we're going a lot more straight up than a swing. So we want to lift the chest actually as we're starting this. I'm pretty good at keeping my elbow back on the way up. On the way down though, you can see elbow flares out and I'm kind of dumping into the front of my shoulder. And then I'm twisting forward. So just a lot of like excess movement that I really got to clean up as I practiced these. So let's look at the improvement. So 10 pounds heavier, which is exciting. Okay, so see that starting position? I'm a little bit more upright with my chest, and that's because that path of the bell is going straight up rather than out. So it's just about trying to get from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. Elbow comes back, and then on the way down, see how much tighter that was. I'm not dumping, rounding that shoulder forward. Let's look at the legs. Did I fix the Elvis knees? Yeah, that's a lot cleaner. All right, let's look at snatches. So again, we're gonna look at a dead snatch. That was like a clean to an overhead press. Wasn't really a snatch, but okay. Yeah, there's just a lack of power. Again, we're going straight up, so we want to have a squattier hinge. I'm doing a lot of hip movement, a lot of like 1-2 with the knees. And see from the front, I'm probably dumping into that shoulder again too. I'm even starting like super twisted. So the thing that I was really missing with my snatches in the beginning was this idea of making it more of a vertical jump. Snatches are going to be very much like push presses where you really need to drive down the floor. And the heavier the weight, the more force you need. So you're actually gonna see as I redo these, look at my feet. I am like off the floor. So you just need a lot more force production to get that weight up there. You've got a squattier hinge. Let's look at the shoulder. Are we dumping forward or are we keeping it tight? Little dump forward. I can keep that elbow back more, but no more like hip shift, Elvis knees. Yeah, so much cleaner. Let's look at our last one, which is a Turkish Get Up. This one I just had a few tiny things to clean up. So the biggest thing, again, was dumping into my shoulder. And you can see right in the beginning here, there's a lot of like movement. So right off the beginning, I move that arm to sit up. I move it again to get all the way up. And then this all looks good. As I come down, I'm keeping that arm so close. I'm dumping into the shoulder again and then moving it to sit down. So there's just a lot of excess movement that's happening. Whereas if we go to the retest, now I'm lining up that arm. Look also how it's kind of out of frame, but I'm turning my thumb up. That's gonna externally rotate my shoulder and just put me in a better, more secure position to roll to the side to get up. I will say I internally rotate a little as I'm coming up so I can work better on that. Put the palm down, and then all I'm doing is twisting on the floor. So rather than moving that whole arm, and again, this gets more important as you go heavier. This is the big thing I cleaned up. So instead of coming down the leg and keeping the hand really, really close to me, I'm going out more to cover more space to reduce dumping into that shoulder. So you'll see come down, out, I'm in this quadrupled position, so I don't have to dump into that shoulder, rotate, bring it down, and down. And a lot of these things, like all of the drills that I did in the beginning, it wasn't like, oh my God, it's unsafe or you're doing it wrong. It's little tiny technique things that I just got to clean up so that I can perform them better and more efficiently and with more weight over time. And then from a coaching perspective, I learned a lot about troubleshooting if people have poor hip drive, people have limited overhead mobility, breathing mechanics. So there was a lot of great stuff on the coaching aspect too, but even just as someone who wanted to learn more about the technique and execution of skills, this was super helpful. All right, we're here for some FAQs. I basically just went through all of your questions and saw which ones were asked the most. Again, if I don't get to your question in this video, you can always DM me, you can always leave it down in the comment box below, and I will make sure to get to it. Why choose kettlebells over dumbbells for certain exercises? I just just find that kettlebells are easier to hold sometimes, like in rows, like in carries. In a goblet squat, by holding onto the kettlebell, you can actually pull apart, get a little bit more activation in the upper back. But sometimes for people, holding a kettlebell isn't more comfortable. For instance, in a racked position, trying to do an overhead press, a lot of people simply don't have the wrist stability or the shoulder stability to be pressing a weight that is kind of one-sided up over the head. Personally, I don't think that everyone needs to use kettlebells for every exercise. I think unless a client expresses an interest in doing so, I'm going to prioritize dumbbells for a lot of movements just because it is easier for people to grasp. What weight to choose for an exercise you usually do with dumbbells? The same weight. Weight is weight. A pound is a pound. I have people ask me every single time I post an exercise that has kettlebells in it, well, what weight do I choose? If I do a 20-pound row with a dumbbell, what do I choose for a kettlebell? The same thing. 20 pounds of dumbbell is the exact same thing as 20 pounds of kettlebell. The only exception I'm going to make to this is, again, that overhead pressing. And it has to do with that exact same thing that I said earlier about wrist and shoulder stability. And sometimes people just can't handle how the weight is distributed on a kettlebell versus a dumbbell. But I would say for pretty much every other exercise, exactly the same. Are adjustable kettlebells worth the investment? You're asking someone who does own the Bowflex adjustable kettlebell. And I would say for skills, no. I guess it's fine for swings, but if you're looking to get like really good with your technique on things like cleans and snatches, the shape of the bell just isn't quite right. For a lot of strength exercises, I think it's perfectly fine. You are gonna have some issues with something like a goblet squat though. The shape of the bar just doesn't really lend itself to that. But I would say if you're just looking to do some basic strength stuff with it and that's what you have access to, go for it. Can you give us a buying guide? Absolutely. I think Rogue is always a great way to go, and they typically will have some sales throughout the year. I have this kettlebell right here that I got on Amazon, which the shape of the bell I really enjoy, as well as the coating on it. It isn't like super slippery. The main thing you want to look at, and this is kind of what I've been talking about over the last few questions, is kind of the shape of the bar. If it's too narrow, you're not going to be able to get a good grip on it. And if it's too wide, it's going to be harder to do skills with. So you just kind of want more of like the industry standard. So I will leave those things linked down below. I would love a great kettlebell workout. Well, I actually have some free ones on here, so I will link them. I actually, now that I've gone through all this, I'm kind of terrified to look back at my form, but that's fine. Look, the thing is, I don't think we're growing enough if we are able to look back on, content or work from a year or 2 years ago and not cringe a little bit. So it's fine. I've taken the time to educate myself more, and I'm probably gonna look back at this video in another year or two and be like, girl, your form could have been better, because especially as coaches, we should always be improving. But yeah, that's it. Those are the 5 most frequently asked questions. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, and I will see you all in the next one.